Welcome to Insights and Business. We are coming to you live from the Tidemark Theatre in Campbell River. Today's discussion is going to center around the new virtual world that we find ourselves in due to the global pandemic. The Tidemark Theatre is an excellent example of how companies and organizations have had to pivot. They were able to purchase broadcast equipment, which allows shows such as this to be live streamed, along with all of their music and dance and theater performances to audiences that are ticketed. They're just watching from home in the safety of their home instead of here at the theater. Our guest today is Leah Tremain of Tremain Media. Welcome.
Hi, Mary Ruth. Good to see you.
You too. Now, before we get into the global pandemic issues and how the landscape has changed immensely for digital media and marketing and how companies have had to pivot, I would like to talk about the person behind the CEO title. So, Leah, you have some really interesting background in martial arts. Can you share that with us?
Sure. Yes, I always love talking about martial arts. So I saw my kids participating in judo and I fell in love, and I asked if they could start a class, and there was a bunch of moms. We started this class together, and from there, from judo, I went to jiu-jitsu. So starting at 40 years old, I was competing in the province against women 10, 20 years, not 20 years younger, but 10 years younger than me.
Wow.
And I made it to the Worlds, to the World Masters. So that was the first time I was able to compete against somebody my own age. And the very first time I went to the World Masters in Las Vegas, I was so scared because my competitor was a police officer from Brazil. And Brazil is the home country of the sport. So I was very nervous, but I finished the match definitively with a bow and arrow choke. I got gold, and I've been back 3 times since. So I'm a 2-time world champion. And then the last time I went was quite challenging because I was in the middle of a big personal separation and everything else, but I went anyway, shed more than 1 tear, and got silver and bronze. So it's been quite the journey, but I love martial arts for the confidence it's given me and for the humbleness it's given my sons. They are amazing. They never need to test themselves out against anybody. They have very tempered egos. They're very gentle because they know their own strength. They know their own confidence.
Right.
So I just think it's such a wonderful way to participate in the world. Now, it's a little more difficult with the pandemic. There are some gyms open and they take very specific protocols. But I took a summer off and decided to get obsessed with tennis. and I just need to do a little shout out to the Campbell River Tennis Club. They were so welcoming. They do every Saturday, they have free lessons. So next summer, if we still are in pandemic mode, do consider tennis. Oh my gosh, so fun. And free lessons every Saturday. So shout out to jiu-jitsu and shout out to tennis.
That's awesome. Now, I want to touch on something you said, that Brazil was the home of jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so what happened was Cano was the founder of judo, and he was an educator, and one of his educators went to Brazil and was teaching the Gracie family jiu-jitsu. It was originally Japanese jiu-jitsu. He was teaching them judo proper. And he left, and that family made their own sport, which was Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which is primarily the ground game of judo, which is called newaza. So it's a lot of wrestling with tapping out. Like there's chokes and there's arm bars and wrist locks and all sorts of fun things. But it's primarily that groundwork. There's still some takedowns. So it's kind of judo is from Japanese jiu-jitsu, and then judo splinters further into Brazilian jiu-jitsu and judo proper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I had no idea that was how that had developed over time. How many years ago did that happen? The Brazil development?
I don't know when the Brazilian side of it happened, but for judo, Kano saw that a lot of the Japanese jiu-jitsu clubs, which held a lot of their secrets within the club, was changing with the Industrial Revolution. That kind of tradition was changing. So he worked to codify some of that Japanese jiu-jitsu and made judo, and also took out some of the moves that would literally kill somebody.
Oh, okay.
So you can practice judo and jiu-jitsu with full force, with very little injury. There's probably less injury in jiu-jitsu than there would be in something like soccer.
Oh.
So it's quite it's made to be a safe sport. And I'm a brown belt now in jiu-jitsu, so I have to go back. I have to go back and try for my black belt. And I have to go back to the Worlds to see if I can win another gold at brown and then again at black.
Wow. Now, how long does it take you to work through each level, each belt level, approximately?
It really depends on the school. It's jiu-jitsu's a really rapidly evolving sport. Things change so quickly, and schools have different flavors or different approaches to it. So it usually takes a couple years to get a belt. It's not as quick as some karate schools or even judo. It does. You get 4 stripes before you change your belt color. I know a friend of mine, he's in his 7th year, but he's been very intermittent, and he's almost blue belt. So that goes white, blue. So it's a slow process. So I've been practicing for 11 years, and I'm just a brown belt.
Now, when you say just a brown belt, how many other belts come before the brown?
White, blue, purple, brown, black.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's a shorter kind of belt. There's less belts, but it takes longer to get through each belt. And I train here with Jody at Pure Martial Arts, and then I also train in Nanaimo with Island Top Team. We have an amazing coach. We have an amazing coach here, and we also, if I'm going to a competition, I make sure to get time in there as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, to all the parents that are watching, of any age, what would you say to them, either for their children or for themselves, to pursue this type of activity?
Well, as a female, I feel so safe. It takes me moments to size up a person and to know that I'm either I would be able to protect myself or even go further and damage that other person. So, new on the dating scene, I'm not worried about meeting somebody for coffee or going for a walk with somebody, because I can handle myself. If they're untrained, I know I can beat them, and that's a really empowering feeling.
Yes.
That's it's a strong feeling of confidence. So women who are working in the health industry, nurses, anybody who's working with people, it's really nice to know how to handle yourself in case an emergency situation arises and you have to get in conflict. And with jiu-jitsu, it's not striking, it's on the ground, but most fights go to the ground, and you need to be able to learn to protect yourself and to get away. It's not to teach you to stay and fight, although if I was to get into an altercation, I probably would try to immobilize the person and then call for help.
Right. So I was going to say, is it more at the end about controlling the situation, like being in the position of power to control the situation so no one gets hurt?
Absolutely. And there is, I think it's called police judo.
Okay.
Because judo, you can control a person in a situation as you can with jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
But it is an art practiced by some police officers, because it is a way you can immobilize and control a situation. And security guards take it as well.
Right.
And for children, what I found really striking about it is, as an adult or a child, there's a lot, you're constantly practicing, so you're doing live rolling, so you're winning or you're losing again and again. And if you have a very rigid ego, you're going to snap and you're not going to want to stay. But if you can make it through those hard times and learn how to lose as well as learn how to win, it's a really good tempering of the ego. And for a child coming up in martial arts, my son, for example, someone got an armbar on him, a white belt, and it was a man my age. And this man was so excited, he couldn't stop talking. He was talking really quickly. And then we left, and I said, Thomas, did you give him that armbar? And he's like, well, he kind of had it, and I just wanted to see if he could finish it. Anyone else with a big ego would be like, he's never getting an armbar on me. But to see a young man with that kind of compassion and not so attached to ego is wonderful. And also, a friend of mine who's a police officer that practices judo, he says he finds that police officers that practice in the martial arts, they don't have to prove themselves. There's not. Let me take that. Let me reel that back, because that's a kind of a polemic area I was going into. But humans that work in the martial arts, they don't have to prove themselves. You're always working on the mat. You know what your strength is there. You don't have to kind of chest out go and prove something to somebody. Yep. And that's something that I've noticed, and that's something he's noticed too, is that people who are practicing, they're actually gentler in the streets. So,
Great. Well, we are going to take a very short break. You're watching Insights and Business. Our guest today is Leah Tremain. We will be right back.
I had so many people say to me, oh, when you take your art and turn it into your job, it's not the same. It's sharing culture and traditions that I love and the inspiration behind the art. To me, it's not really a job. It's just my passion. It's just creating what I love every day.
Welcome back to Insights in Business. I'm Mary Ruth Snyder, the Executive Director for the Campbell River and District Chamber of Commerce. Our guest today is Leah Tremain of Tremain Media, based here in Campbell River. Now, Leah, you're based here, but your reach is national, global?
We do work with 2 global companies, and we do get a lot of phone calls from Toronto and they often have offices or facilities out here where we have to film. Our reach primarily is the island. When we do work with government, it's out of Victoria. We work with the Ministry of Education sometimes. And then when we do work with global companies, it's their BC arm. So, and we do have a second office in Nanaimo. So yeah, we've kind of creeped out there, and we do stuff on the mainland. We haven't gone out of BC very often.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we are in a global pandemic, so that's kind of changing the entire landscape around digital and virtual media. And in your experience, based on what you had watched develop over the last 20 years in the industry leading up to March 12th, and what you've seen since, how have you seen the digital marketing side shift?
Yeah, I'd have to say that not too much has shifted, but the attitudes of the businesses who are like, we don't have to do this, has dramatically shifted and quickly. For example, a winery which didn't have a very good website and had people come to their winery for tastings, would buy the wine, and also had distributors into stores. When that lockdown happened and people weren't even going to stores that often, they immediately had to shift to digital. So what you're seeing is those last businesses that were kind of hanging on to their bricks and mortar or their non-digital procurement and selling practices, they've now had to shift, and they've now had to go to digital.
Now, have you noticed an increase in video production to go with their digital footprint?
Absolutely. So I see 2 trends with that. One is that with the pandemic, it's even more necessary for companies, businesses, not-for-profits to move to video, because now more than ever, we need to see the human face. We need to see other humans and how they're reacting to this unprecedented situation. So that's been really important. And part of the importance of that is authenticity. So it may not be a really slick car commercial saying, we're there for you, we care for you. It may be a CEO in his home with his phone talking directly to his customers or talking to his or her employees and doing that in an authentic way. Now, on the other side of things, we've seen video becoming the new language of the internet probably since like 2012, 2014, in that area. And we were doing workshops talking about the power of video on media. And I see the proliferation of video being a lot like what happened after the printing press was developed. So the printing press came about 500 years ago, and then with higher speed printing presses, the masses were able to get books. Now, there might have been a certain number of genres of books, but now, 500 years later, how many genres of books are there? There's flash fiction, there's short stories, there's postmodern fiction, there's a million kinds of nonfiction. So we've seen something that was very kind of closed, opening up, and then a number of genres coming out. Now, the same thing, and this is new as of, I would say, in the last 3 or 4 years, is there's that same kind of splintering of voices in video. So originally when YouTube came out, which was I think around 2005, Facebook was around 2004, I think. And when you made a video, you'd make it for your website, Facebook and YouTube, and it was kind of the same. But now the landscape has changed, and it's like that printing press, and it's like that proliferation of genres. So many different kinds of videos now. So if I'm posting a video to LinkedIn, it's a lot different than the video I'm posting to TikTok, and it's different than the video I'm posting to Instagram stories, and it's maybe different than the video I'm posting to YouTube. And then even within YouTube, there's so many types and genres of videos. It's quite astounding. So
it is, and I've actually noticed that splintering of voices and the breadth of genres widening on Netflix. Like, Netflix 5 years ago, you had your action, your romance, your drama, your medical, that was pretty much it. Now, there's 17 or 18 categories right on the homepage that that you scroll through. So and especially even in the last 8 months since the pandemic started, I've noticed additional categories showing up out of nowhere. I don't know if these were in production just before the pandemic or whether they were able to shift and add some in through social distancing while the pandemic has been on. But yeah, it's definitely noticeable, especially on the streaming products.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is the algorithm behind the scenes, the algorithm that knows you. So I'm sure when the Queen's Gambit came up, it was. Have you seen that series?
I haven't watched it.
But was it advertised to you?
It was advertised, yeah.
See, of course it was advertised to you, but it wouldn't be advertised to my son. So, what you and I are seeing is a lot different than what other people would see. And even the little thumbnail pictures that they choose to put on the front changes. If you're not clicking on something to watch a trailer, you watch and if they think that this is something that you would love, that thumbnail is going to change so it looks different. And Netflix is quite secretive about their algorithm. But underlying all of this, even YouTube, anywhere, is this algorithm which is customizing what we see and how we see it. So when we're creating video, no matter what the platform, we're creating it, we have to make sure to encapsulate the voice of the brand. So we need to make sure that we're reflecting the business, but then we also need to be mirroring who the audience is, as well as taking into consideration what is the language of that platform. So video has gotten, in one sense, easier and more accessible for anybody to make, and then in the other sense, it's gotten a little more complex in thinking. And so that's why when we work with clients, we start with a digital marketing plan so we can go back to the beginning. Let's figure out exactly who your audience.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Siri, thanks. I wasn't talking to you, Siri.
See?
I'm sorry.
That is a perfect example of the digital age we're in. We wouldn't believe how many times that happens if I have my phone on top of the desk when I'm in a Zoom meeting. All of a sudden, it will just start talking to be a part of the Zoom call. It's nuts.
Yes, yeah. Everything's changed so quickly,
Yes.
and it's definitely going to continue to do so. And one thing I've noticed about our clients and about the general public is people are becoming more adaptable to that change.
Right.
So the more we can get comfortable with change, both as a media and marketing agency and our clients, the better it will be, the more adaptable we can be. And that's kind of like the martial arts that I take, is if you can't be flexible and adaptable and change, then you're going to break.
Right.
You need to be flexible, and that's what this landscape requires.
Okay. Now we are going to take another quick break. Time is flying by here at Insights in Business. We are coming to you from the Tidemark Theatre. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Insights in Business. We are here at the Tidemark Theatre. Our guest today is Leah Tremain from Tremain Media, and we are talking about all things martial arts to global pandemic to marketing digitally, which is, I would say, the new buzzword this year, or buzz phrase, I guess. So I understand you might have some success stories that you can share with us that will demonstrate how things have shifted. Literally, it's only been 8 months that we've been living this.
Yeah. I've had a couple experiences. One, I was helping teach a digital marketing course, and one of my students, who also could have been a teacher, he owns retail. He owns a couple diamond retail stores, like jewelry stores. And he had a beading site where he was selling beads through Shopify. And before the pandemic, in that full year, he made $1,900. So he was ready to shut it down and put it away. And the pandemic came, and he started getting orders. So he was on lockdown, so he had his mother, his children's grandmother, his wife, his children, all working to fulfill these orders. So not only was he fulfilling these orders, but he's a smart marketer. So he would include a free mask. He found out where WestJet gets their cookies from, the prepackaged cookies, and he included these cookies and a handwritten note with every order, which made people talk, which made people feel cared for in a really tricky time. That first lockdown was really difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So from $1,900 in a year, within, I think, 4 months, he was at $75,000. And then from there, last I heard, it was $125,000. So it just skyrocketed because he was ready. He was able to not only fulfill orders, but to add that incredibly important personal touch, which got everybody talking. So he's in this course, and his mind is going, and he's hardly sleeping because he wants to grow this even more. But what a success story.
That is unbelievable.
Yes, and then another one was a client of ours, been a client of ours off and on for a couple of years, and their part of their business is selling fish, and they had distributors. And the lockdown started, and I can't tell their whole story fully, but their lockdown started, and they had a whole bunch of fish in their warehouse that they needed to move. So they thought, well, let's just try putting up a site and just doing delivery. It went crazy, and it was the same kind of numbers. It was that same kind of trajectory from 0 into 5 digits, and now probably into the hundreds of thousands now. And that is in a very short time. And they've moved from doing local deliveries to Courtenay, to Nanaimo, to the whole island.
Wow.
So they've set up a whole new business model around what it is they do.
Okay.
And because they're not working with distributors anymore, their profit is way higher, which means that fish can be sold at way lower. They're doing an amazing job at marketing. So if you're on Facebook, you probably see them. And that's Tied to Table. And they are Walcan, and they are Tied to Table. So you'll see a lot of their marketing, and they're doing a lot of that in-house and spreading that out. We had a little help in branding, but they're amazing. So those are 2 success stories. One local, the other one's on the mainland.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's really fantastic. I think one of the most interesting things has been to watch the proliferation of videos, short videos, that have shown up on Facebook and now are showing up in all the news feeds. And it's not just videos from like, you know, Dancing with the Stars or, you know, all the national networks, but it's local shop owners that are saying, hey, stop by our shop and come on in and see what we've got this week. We got a great new order of this and this and this. And if you don't feel comfortable coming down, even though we have our social distancing in place, we have a website and everything is now on the website. So you can look there as well. Give us a call. It's just really been interesting to see people who, like, if you would have told them a year ago that, you know what, in 6 months, you're going to be on camera and you're going to be promoting your shop and your product on video, they would have been, ha, you're nuts. No way, not in a million years.
Yeah, I love seeing that too. And there's a store that I follow out of Courtney, and the owner is on camera a lot, and she's showing the new clothes as they come in. Like, how are we supposed to keep up on any trends? Not that I do these days as much, but unless I'm seeing it somewhere. And so she has her friends modeling the clothes.
Oh, is that ever great?
Yeah, but this person is also so super authentic about who she is and maybe some of the anxiety she suffers, and that's in that same feed.
Right.
So there's a wonderful authenticity that's coming through in marketing these days that's very valuable. But there's also a really incredible data-driven approach. So, for example, if you're selling to the island or if you're selling to the province, then you're selling in a way that is taking into account the data that's coming in.
Right.
Sorry, my watch keeps. I told my watch not to talk to me, and it keeps talking to me.
Shh, don't
talk. Shh. Yeah, so it's really interesting how it's not just, you know, authenticity, and which you can do a lot of when your customers are local. But
Right.
if you're spending money through the whole island, through the whole province, or even through all of Canada, you have to be really savvy about how you do that. And that's when it's best to hire experts. And there's a number of marketing agencies on the island that can help, because then you have a customer journey. It used to be the funnel.
Right.
These days it's a flywheel. And
Yeah.
you're moving your customers online with very specific marketing to hit them at that beginning stage when they're doing their research and development,
Right.
at the next stage when they're looking at, okay, what store am I going to buy this from? And so you have certain video or print assets for them all along this journey, and then you ask for the sale at the end.
Right.
And you're adjusting things depending on what data you're getting back from your ads. I remember working with a Google Ads specialist, and we were going to do a graphic. And I said, well, what color should we use? And he's like, we don't know. We let the data tell us. So
Wow.
it is really, it's you're grabbing data from your customers, you're grabbing data from your website, and you're grabbing data from, let's say you have a landing page, from your advertisements themselves.
Right. Yeah.
They're also all integrated.
Okay.
So campaigns have become very complex.
Yeah.
And data driven.
Okay.
So, and splintered too, because you can then choose what audiences you're
Right.
speaking to.
Of
So on the one hand, things have gotten a little bit easier because you're able to measure your return on investment. On the other hand, there's some very deep waters out there
There
that
is.
sure, you can boost a post locally, but once you get into a bigger market, you really need to be at least talking to an expert to understand the complex network that is digital marketing these days.
Right. Now, believe it or not, but we are out of time. But I am going to close with adding a piece of information to what you've just pointed out. Now, there are a number of programs that are being offered right now through Small Business BC, through Innovation Island, through the BC Chamber Network, and I'm sure I'm missing some. I think there's
through
also
Economic Development Officer, Rose.
Yep, through
Yeah.
Rose, through Tech Hatchery, and there's also a Canadian version. So there's at least 5 or 6 active programs that are happening right now and will be happening for the foreseeable future, like heading into next summer even, where people can start to learn the basics and get themselves up to speed, even just with the language, understanding what Instagram means. And now they've shortened it to go on the gram. So just having that basic understanding is, I think, very helpful to everybody. And then they can turn to experts like you to take them to the next level. So I just want to say thank you for sharing your martial arts story with us, and all of the challenges we're facing because of the global pandemic, and how marketing and digital marketing have now changed forever and taken us into this virtual world. So thank you so much for sharing today.
Well, thanks for having me. This has been fun.
All right. You've been watching Insights in Business, and we've been coming to you from the Tidemark Theatre in Campbell River. We'll see you again.